The most successful airliner in history started as a bet between two fishing buddies. And here is the strange part. The company that built it was convinced it would be obsolete within 10 years. They designed it to fail gracefully, to spend its old age hauling boxes instead of people. That backup plan is the reason it has a hump, and that hump flew for 54 years. This is the story of the Boeing 747, the plane that was never supposed to be the future and became it anyway. It starts in 1965 on a fishing trip in Alaska. Boeing's president Bill Allen and Pan Am's founder Juan Trippe were old friends, and between casts Trippe kept circling the same complaint. Air travel was exploding. His jets were full, his airports were choking, and the 707, the plane that had started the jet age just 7 years earlier, was already too small. Trippe did not want a bigger plane. He wanted a plane more than twice the size of anything that had ever carried a passenger. And somewhere on that water, the two men made a deal that executives still argue about today. If you build it, Trippe said, I will buy it. And Allen answered, if you buy it, I will build it. No committee, no market study, a handshake. In April 1966, Pan Am signed for 25 aircraft at $525 million, the largest single order in the history of aviation. And only then did everyone involved confront the obvious problem. The airplane did not exist. The engines it needed did not exist. And there was not a building on planet Earth big enough to put it together in. Boeing handed the impossible job to an engineer named Joe Sutter. Sutter rated every program in the company and pulled together 4,500 engineers, a small army that started calling itself the Incredibles. They had no computers worth mentioning. They designed the largest jet on Earth with slide rules, pencils, and 75,000 engineering drawings, and they did it in about 29 months. Everyone told Sutter to stack 2 decks like a double-decker bus. He refused and instead went wide, one enormous single deck, 2 aisles, 10 seats across. It was the first wide-body airliner, and every twin-aisle jet you have ever boarded descends from that decision. Meanwhile, 30 miles north of Seattle, in the woods outside Everett, Boeing was performing an even stranger trick. It was building the factory and the airplane at the same time. When the first workers arrived, the roof was not finished, and Washington rain fell straight onto the drafting tables. They kept working. The building they finished is still, by volume, the largest enclosed space human beings have ever constructed. You could fit Disneyland inside it with room left over. Now for the twist at the heart of this whole story. In 1966, Boeing was certain that the future of passenger flight was supersonic. Faster than sound, New York to London in 3 hours. Planes like the Concorde were coming, and next to them, a big, slow jumbo looked like a dead end. So Boeing planned for its own plane to lose. The 747 was engineered from day one to retire into a second career as a cargo freighter. That is why the cockpit sits upstairs on that famous hump, to leave the nose free to swing open so freight could slide straight into the fuselage. The most recognizable silhouette in aviation is really a contingency plan. Then history played its joke. The supersonic age never arrived. It drowned in fuel costs, noise bans, and economics. And the backup plan, the humble box hauler, became the queen. Getting her into the air nearly destroyed Boeing. The new engines arrived late, and when they did arrive, they surged and overheated. At one point, finished airplanes sat in rows outside the Everett factory with concrete blocks chained under the wings where engines were supposed to hang. Dozens of completed jumbos going nowhere. Boeing had borrowed past $2 billion, more than the entire company was worth. And just as the 747 finally entered service, the economy rolled over. Airlines stopped ordering anything. Boeing went 17 straight months without selling a single 747 to any American airline, and cut its workforce from over 100,000 people to under 40,000. Seattle sank so deep that 2 real estate agents rented a billboard by the airport that read, "Will the last person leaving Seattle turn out the lights?" One more bad year, and there is no Boeing today. But the Queen had already left the runway. January 1970, Pan Am, New York to London, 355 tons lifting off with nearly 500 seats. Nothing like it had ever carried the public, and the economics changed overnight. With that many seats crossing the ocean at once, the cost of each one collapsed. Flying stopped being a luxury reserved for the rich and became something ordinary families simply did. In 1970, the world's airlines carried about 300 million passengers. 20 years later, it was a billion. The 747 did not just ride that wave, it made it. Boeing went on to build 1,574 of them across 54 years, hauling presidents, space shuttles, and roughly half of humanity's air cargo. When the very last one rolled out of that Everett factory in January 2023, the workers who built her gathered on the same floor where the Incredibles once worked in the rain, and watched the Queen of the Skies leave home for the last time. An airplane designed for a future that never happened, built in a factory that had no roof, by a company that bet its own existence on a friend's word. Everything about it should have failed. Instead, the whole jet age we live in, every crowded terminal, Every cheap ticket across an ocean traces back to two men in a fishing boat, shaking hands over a plane that did not exist.